Hello there. Welcome to Marriage Unmasked. Today we are talking about the top 7 things that cause disconnection in your marriage. And disconnection can lead into some really extremely painful experiences. And Cara and I, we've experienced it many, many times.
All right, let's start with number one. Let's get right into it. And this is unresolved emotional pain. We see this so often, and we've felt this so often. And it can be hard because if you're in a marriage where there is a lot of conflict, there's a lot of hurtful words, there's a lot of hurtful behavior, maybe trust has been broken, and you're not sure how to name your emotions, process them in a healthy way, that unresolved pain that just keeps building and building and building and building, and it just stays stuck in your body for years and years and years. And Adam and I've been married for almost 20 years. That's a lot of pain, right? And then a couple of years before we were even married too. I mean, we broke up several times before we even got married.
Yeah, there's a lot of painful experiences. And yes, if you don't heal those things, the wounds keep occurring over and over again.
I want you to think about it as like these open wounds. And so imagine me cozying up to Adam and we both have these open wounds. We're not going to want to touch each other. We're not going to want to get close. We're not going to want to connect in that way because we are both hurting and we have these wounds that are open, and so we want to protect. We want to put up some walls, and that's really what this unhealed emotional pain does, is it creates walls. And we see a lot of resentment in couples that we work with. We've experienced it ourselves as well. One of the things that resentment has come from, especially in our marriage, is when apologies don't match the actions. And we see that happening a lot. Someone says, I'm sorry, and I'm not going to do that, or they make a promise on how they're going to change, and then that actually doesn't happen. Those words are just words instead of actions. That is really painful.
Because the apology was really part of the repair. So there was supposed to be repair there, and there's supposed to be connection again because of that repair. And then those words are broken again. It is like breaking that connection right in the exact same place again. It's just opening that wound all up again, and it's very painful. And I've done that to Cara so many times. I've promised things, I've promised to change, and then even if it's unintentional, even if it's not something that I thought out and thought through, I still do an action then that I promised I wouldn't do. And then that is extremely painful, and that hurts the relationship so deeply, and that happens over and over again. That resentment just builds, and it causes all kinds of pain and all kinds of disconnection.
Yeah, this is really, I think, where so much of the pain in marriage comes from. This number one.
A lot of the other ones, which we're going to get to yet, are connected to this one in some way.
Yeah, because when you have these unhealed emotional wounds, then you act out in these other ways we're going to talk about. But really, the only way forward is to do the healing for yourself. You can't do it for your spouse. You can't make them do it. But when you take ownership that pain is there for you, and you have these unhealed wounds and you start healing them, that is so powerful. It's powerful for you. It doesn't depend on your spouse, what he or she is doing or not doing. It's really for you. Because when you get those wounds healed, you show up in a completely different way. And that's why we have in our Healing Your Marriage course, what a whole module is on, the 5 steps to inner healing that we share. And those are just so powerful, really letting that pain come to the light instead of keeping it hidden, keeping it pushed down, bringing it to the light and letting God heal that. It is so powerful, and helps you to bring that connection back then after you yourself have done that healing work.
Yeah, it is. It's incredibly powerful when you do that inner work. So then I'll go on with number 2 here. Number 2 is poor communication habits and patterns. So for that, we're talking about things like harsh criticism, or, criticism that isn't healthy. I mean, there can be constructive criticism, and that's painful in some ways, but it isn't harsh criticism where you're coming from a judgmental place and really attacking the other person out of your own pain. So criticism. Sarcasm, that's like a verbal knife sometimes. That cuts deep. When somebody's sarcastic, it's so disrespectful. It really hurts. Defensiveness, throwing up a wall and maybe checking out of the conversation, or giving a lot of excuses, a lot of reasons why you behaved a certain way rather than taking full-on ownership. And that's something that I struggled with many times. Was I just want her to know my perspective, and so I'm going to give her every possible reason and excuse in the book, and that did nothing for connecting. all that did was just put up a wall. It made her just feel unheard and unseen in that moment, and it just pushed her away. And the disconnection grew worse instead of coming together. And also your tone in those things, it can be so key. It's not just exactly what you say, it is how you say it in that moment. So any kind of communication, if you're saying things from a hurt place, you're saying things out of a wound, and you're doing so in order to defend yourself or to go on the offensive and either change or try to make the other person feel bad, those are things that are going to cause disconnection. It's just like a war. You cannot have connection if someone's attacking and someone's defending. The better communication is always going to be collaboration. It's going to be having healthy conflict. Like, the conflict itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's how you talk in that conflict. It is the tone you use. It is the words you choose. And the way that you come at it, instead of a war, it's like collaborating for peace. It's like coming together and, what do they call that?
Like a peace meeting?
A peace meeting. A peace meeting.
Peace council?
Peace council, sure, I guess we can say that. But you're like collaborating. You're trying to come together about the issue instead of attacking each other's person. You're attacking the issue. You're coming together in that way. That is healthy communication, and we do have our steps for healthy conflict, which is also really important. That's part of our Healing Your Marriage course as well. And those are ways to like get to connection again instead of the attacking and defending, which just doesn't help.
I know your heart is to communicate well, but yet so many times you come in with good intentions and then it just blows up in your face. Yeah. And so I offer a lot of great resources for communication, especially for wives. I am running a challenge coming up soon, November 4th to 6th. It's a calm conversation challenge where I'm going to go each day and give you live training on healthy communication, specifically for wives, because that's who I mostly speak to. Just helping you to heal, right? Address some of the wounds that might be underneath, and giving you practical daily things to start doing already to improve communication and get that connection with your conversations instead of that painful disconnection. So that's coming up. So we'll have the link for that in the show notes too.
That's going to be really, really powerful. Mm-hmm.
The third one, number 3 thing that is causing disconnection in your marriage is misaligned expectations.
That's a big one.
You know, that has blown up in our marriage so many times. I think I always have like high expectations, and I always have like hopes and dreams. Like, I am a big kind of dreamer, like a romantic, all these things.
Right. I mean, you dream big, you can also be disappointed big.
Yeah. And sometimes these expectations, it turns into like pressuring him, making him feel like he has to be perfect. He missed the mark again. I was disappointed, and that disappointment, whether I say things or not, which I've said plenty of things, but even he can tell in my face. Like, I'm not one of those people that can do like a poker face. Like, no, you can tell. And so I don't have to say a word, and he can feel that disappointment just like running off me. And then he struggled with shame anyway. And so that can feed this, like, I'm not good enough, I need to be perfect for her kind of thing.
No husband wants to disappoint his wife. And same with a wife to the husband. You don't want to disappoint either if it's the other way.
I remember this time specifically when it was like a massive blow up for us. And actually it took a long time to heal the wounds from this blow up. We were going on an anniversary trip. And I had these expectations. This is going to be amazing. Like, we needed some time away. We have all these kiddos and work and all the things. And I had these expectations, like, this is going to be so special. Maybe he's even going to do something romantic. Like, it's going to be just great. It's going to feel so good, rejuvenating, all the things. And we got there, and the first night he was kind of like on his phone more than I felt like he should be. And then we kind of talked that through. And then the next day, we had a little conflict, and so things were kind of a little bit tense, but we were having fun and we kind of got through it. And then we were doing an activity, and we came back to the house we were renting, and I was ready to go kayaking because
this house was on the lakes.
Yep. And I wanted to like see the sunset in the kayak, and like, so we were both going to do that. But then he got on his phone again and said he had to just quickly do something. And then he just was on there longer and longer, and I was getting really antsy. And so I went out in the kayak. I was like, I'm just going to go out there. And then I just got more and more upset, right? I was out there in the kayak, paddling by myself on my anniversary trip, creating this whole thing in my head, feeling disappointed. And so that just kind of escalated. It just got really, really painful.
It did. And I was like, well, why did she leave? You know, like why is she gone on the kayak? I told her just a couple minutes, but it was longer than a couple minutes. So it was not very responsible of me to be on the phone that long and trying to get this thing done that I probably shouldn't have even bothered to do. And then, I paddle out to her on the other kayak and we couldn't connect. Communication just was a complete breakdown at that point. It's hard to get back into connection when there's been a deep disappointment like that.
And so we ended up going to sleep, like not even really talking.
On our anniversary.
Yeah. The next morning, then we woke up. We were still just like so much in pain. Then we separated again. I think I went out kayaking again. He left to go for a walk. I mean, it was just really, really sad. And we ended up getting in the car early to go home because we were like, what is the point of being here? We're not even spending time together. And I just remember crying the whole way home and just feeling just so disappointed, right? And so it's not that you can't have expectations. There, and I think we did a whole podcast on this, didn't we? I feel like we did. Yeah. But you can have expectations, you can have hopes and dreams for your marriage, but it's really a fine line when you do have those expectations. You don't want to necessarily have expectations for your spouse because you can't control them, and so you might be setting yourself up for disappointment. And so it's kind of a tricky area, but it's something to be mindful of, right? Am I having really high expectations and then communicating that disappointment later in an unhealthy way? And can you manage the disappointment when it does come up, because it will, right? Our expectations are never going to be perfectly met. And so I think we need to have that realization as well and just kind of have that peace about that when it doesn't happen.
Yeah, for sure. And number 4, it really ties in with this one pretty well. Emotional or physical withdrawal. Like if you are drawing back into yourself, either emotionally or you're actually physically leaving each other and separating from each other, and that could even be like looking away in the conversation and like showing them that you're back. Like those kind of things cause all kinds of disconnection in your marriage. And usually this is happening out of self-protection. And I always like to say self-protection always destroys connection, because when you are in a self-protective state, when your wounds are being triggered, maybe you're just feeling angry or hurt or whatever, and you're protecting yourself, then you are not going to connect with your spouse. You are going to put up a wall. There's going to be disconnection there, and it's really, really hard to work through that sometimes. It erodes your intimacy. You're not able to actually have healthy conversations then, because there's this disconnection. And it takes a lot of courage to re-engage when that's going on. And I mean, we could even talk about that same trip if we wanted. There was physical separation that happened there. Like Cara left early in the canoe. She didn't wait for me. I'm confused. I'm hurt that she's physically leaving me. Then I go out there and she is definitely emotionally not connected, definitely avoiding me emotionally. She's not even responding to the things I'm saying. So these kind of things, it causes that disconnection. And I know we've had arguments and stuff in the middle of the night, and that's some of the worst times to have a disconnection. And this has happened many times for us. I remember once when we had a really painful conversation, and it was late at night, and we were, tired and everything else, and we couldn't reach any kind of a resolution. I think I was probably being very defensive, so I was doing the communication that wasn't healthy. And we were obviously emotionally withdrawn from each other, and then I physically left. I left the room, and I went downstairs and decided I'm going to sleep downstairs because I am just feeling disconnected. I don't know how to resolve this anymore, and I kind of threw up my hands and gave up. And that was painful for both of us then, because she wants me there. She wants to resolve this. She wants to get through this, and I'm checked out. And then later on in the night, I felt responsible. I'm like, man, I shouldn't have left. And it takes an incredible amount of courage then to go up there and to really lay your ego down and say, I was wrong. That was not a wise decision to leave. in that state. And so I went back in and tried again to connect. But it takes courage then to reconnect when there's this emotional and this physical disconnection, this physical withdrawal that happens between you two.
I'm almost like the queen of this number 4. I'm like the queen of emotional and physical withdrawal. Because for so long I have felt like I needed to protect myself. Like I was the only one who's going to protect myself. And so I need to do that anytime I'm feeling unsafe. For me, I've even left our bed in the middle of the night. Speaking of in the middle of the night, right? I've left our bed in the middle of the night to sleep in the closet because I felt so uncomfortable, disconnected from him. He's like, well, yeah, we're disconnected, but I'm going to go to sleep. And I'm like, I'm in pain. Like, I'm not going to sleep here. So I'm going to go in the closet and just talk to God all night, right? Yeah. And I think that happens so often in so many couples, where you feel like you don't know what else to do besides leave, whether it's leaving to sleep in another room or else you tell your spouse you leave, right? You sleep somewhere else. And so if you struggle with that, just know you're not alone. This is your nervous system trying to protect you. That's part of this.
And again, this is where healing really needs to happen, like that healing for your heart, because that is really the root cause of this is, number one, that unresolved emotional pain, and finding that healing so that you can reset and reconnect again.
Yeah, and really, I know I've come back to God so many times and asked him, like, how are you protecting me, right? So that I don't have to always go to trying to protect myself. I'm asking him, how are you protecting me, right? Then I'm feeling safe no matter what's happening in my marriage. I can feel safe with God. I can come back to him and get that safety there. But yeah, that is a really, it's a hard thing to do because, and if you are physically unsafe,
Yeah.
then you need to withdraw,
Absolutely.
right? Like that is absolutely a need. But sometimes our nervous system thinks that we're unsafe when we aren't. And that's where this kind of gets tricky because we do leave. We withdraw, our heart, we close up, right? Or we leave. So yeah, number 5 is control and power struggles. And I could name myself the queen of this too. There's someone who struggles with dominance, right? Where they feel like they need to dominate every conversation or they need to dominate in the relationship. They bring maybe a bullying energy or they're critical a lot. And that's something that I struggle with is criticizing. And really it was a voice I learned early on, but then I learned to criticize myself. And then how I treat myself is how I then treat others. And so it's a whole thing that, I've needed to heal from. But really, underneath this control and the power struggle is really fear. That's really what's underneath there. And so to recognize that and start to get curious about what are you afraid of? What do you think is going to happen if you aren't dominating? If you aren't the one who's right, if you're not in control of everything, getting curious, inviting curiosity over even criticizing yourself, right? Because you might notice this in yourself. You probably do. I know that. And when I was struggling so much with criticizing, I knew that and I would beat myself up about it too, right? And so it's offering that curiosity with compassion. It's coming from a wounded heart. It's coming from fear. And so you need compassion and love, not judgment or accusation against yourself. So I think that's a big part of moving on from that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 6 is neglecting friendship and fun. This is a big one, really. And I hear so many guys that I work with, I can name several of them that really struggled with this in their relationship. And I think what it is too is it's like the desire to get back to when you were first in love with each other, when you were first having fun together, when you were first dating, you're doing all these, it's a desire to go back to that. And if you neglect that aspect of your relationship, that fun side and this like dating and flirting and the whole like connecting that way, if you neglect that for long enough, you're going to notice disconnection because, and this might not be a violent painful disconnection as much, but it could be like a numb separation that happens because you're going through the motions of your marriage, your partners and your parenting partners and all that, and you're just kind of operating in these different spheres and not having this fun connecting activities together. And it's interesting because play and laughter, if you get into that, it can actually restore your connection faster than have this conversation to fix the problem. Like, I know this about her because she grew up in a situation where, like, that is kind of how they would reconnect. Like, if there was disconnection, if there was pain, if somebody was hurting and closed off in their bedroom, what they would do is, like, kind of invade their space, do silly things, make fun of them, tickle them. I don't know. I guess I was.
I don't know what makes fun of them.
Maybe not make fun of them. I wouldn't probably do it. But, like, create a fun
Yeah.
atmosphere again. It's like an energy shift out of the negative energy into a positive energy. And it's funny because I didn't grow up in a family that did that. When we were disconnected, we did the fixing conversation. Like, it was serious business. Like, let's sit down and really get to the bottom of this. And everybody has to share their perspective. And there's value to that too, but you'll get connected a lot faster if you introduce a different kind of energy in the relationship and you get back to a playful, fun place together and have some laughs together.
I remember when we were first married and we were like disconnected, or I was maybe saying, like, I was probably criticizing Adam, honestly. I was probably disappointed because that was a lot of that at the beginning. So, you could see I was disappointed, and he just would kind of shut down. And I remember telling him, like, if you would only just like come and tickle me or pick me up and twirl me around, I would feel better. Like, I would instantly just like feel better about us. And he just could not understand that.
Well, it's like to me, it was such a serious issue. Like, I couldn't dream of the fact that she's like 2 seconds away from a good mood. Like, I could never have expected that because it's so serious to me. And part of that was because I was taking it so seriously too, rather than finding some humor, finding some fun, like being able to be secure enough in myself to look at things from a different perspective rather than, woe is me, we're in this terrible blown up situation.
And this isn't just for like if you're having a fight, but it's also
No.
like just in your relationship in general, adding in fun. I was just coaching a wife last week and she's in a really painful season of her marriage and they were going to go on a date night. And I was like, why don't you guys try something new? She was saying how like they don't have a lot of the same interests. And I was like, well, let's brainstorm what you could try together, right? That would be new and fun. And when you experience new things together, it's actually very bonding.
Yeah.
So to try new things together, add in fun, right? That is so powerful. It's a huge part of a marriage, I think.
Absolutely.
And now the last one, number 7, the last thing that causes disconnection in your marriage is, drum roll, it's a lack of awareness around your thoughts. And this one actually, it's like 1 in 7. These are really heavy hitters. Number 7 here, this lack of awareness around your thoughts really can put you in even more emotional pain, right? Because your thoughts can lead to your emotions. I'll go back to that anniversary trip, and maybe my thought is like, he doesn't even care about our anniversary. Like, he doesn't care about this special time. He cares more about his phone. And that may have been the thought that really brought me into disappointment and feeling unloved and feeling rejected and wanted, maybe so many different emotions. And if I would have recognized, hey, that's just an optional thought. That's not necessarily true, right? That's not necessarily proven fact. That is a thought that's coming in my brain. I can choose to believe it and accept it and take it in, and then it will influence everything I do. It'll influence how I feel. It'll influence what the result happens to be from this moment. Or I can say, you know what, I can see that's going to take me down a really painful road. So the cool thing is that we can choose right? We get to choose what thoughts we take in and believe. And God talks about this in the Bible. This is an incredible gift he gives us, honestly, right? Where he says, take captive every thought. Yeah. I think he says every thought, right? Yeah. Like, think about that. Every thought. How many thoughts do you have every day? And the thing is that why that's so powerful is because your thoughts they affect your emotions, and your thoughts impact your actions. When I choose a thought, he doesn't care about me and his phone is more important than spending time with me, then what do? I am angry and I criticize him, and then I leave in the kayak and go away. And then I, choose to not speak to him when he comes out and comes near me, and right, this whole ripple effect. Whereas if I choose a different thought, like perhaps I'm saying, whatever's going on with him, like, it must be really important, right? It's possible. I mean, I love to try to add those two words. It's possible, because my brain is like, all right, it's possible, right? It will believe that. You want to choose a thought that's believable. And so if I'm like, it's possible that maybe he had an emergency on his phone or whatever, right? Then my actions are going to be different. I'm going to maybe ask him, like, what happened with your phone? Why were you on it for so long? Or it's going to be a different result, and probably a lot less pain, right? And you get to choose. You get to choose if you want a thought that's going to lead you to feeling compassionate. It's going to maybe you want one that's going to lead you to feeling curious. Maybe you want one that's going to lead you to feeling peaceful, whatever, but you get to choose. And that's really, really powerful work, because not realizing the power that's in your thoughts will lead to disconnection over and over and over again, right? If we become a victim to our thoughts, where we just think this is how it is, this is what's actually true, our thoughts, our brain is going to throw us all kinds of thoughts that are meant to protect us. That's what your brain does. And that doesn't mean they're necessarily true. And then those thoughts turn into stories, and they can turn into deep beliefs about your marriage, even, right? About your spouse. I've had to wade through and cut down some beliefs that I've had about men in general, even that men were unsafe. I've had to really lay that one down. I've had to wade through, like, the thought that Adam is untrustworthy, or that he is a passive man, right? And those thoughts, those beliefs, they're just not serving our marriage ever. I can choose to keep believing them, but that's going to lead to disconnection over and over and over again. And so we get to choose, right? And it really does impact the marriage so much. It's very, very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you have it. There are our 7 things that cause disconnection in your marriage. And so my challenge to you guys today is that you choose one of these. Choose one of these areas that really hit you the hardest as we were going through them, and have a conversation about that. Like, talk through, maybe listen to the podcast again and talk through that particular area that causes disconnection for you. And what can you do to stay connected in that area?
And definitely join that calm conversation challenge. If you're a wife, definitely jump in there, maybe even before you have this conversation, because
that's a good idea.
This could be one of the days from the challenges to have this kind of conversation.
If you're a guy, I do have a free guide that you can also grab, that I'll put the link in there, for if your wife is angry, how do you respond wisely? So I'll put that in the show notes as well.
So great resources for you in the show notes. We want to help you to enjoy more connection in your marriage. That's what God has for you. I think sometimes we get in this place where we just get so tired of putting energy and effort into our marriage, and we can just get to this place where we're just resigned, and the thought that we're believing is like, this is never going to get better. This is as good as it's going to get. But I just want to encourage you that God has more for you in your marriage. He wants you to have joy and have connection and intimacy and experience all the goodness that he has for you. And so we want you to contend for that. We don't want you to feel alone. We're here with you. We're here to help you and guide you and support you. And these are some great resources. So definitely check them out in the show notes. And we would love it if you would share the podcast, if you would give us a review, give it a quick rating. Just takes, like, I don't know, maybe 1 minute, 30 seconds, but it means a lot to us. We really appreciate it, and helps us get the word out there to more people. So we will see you next week for another powerful podcast episode.